Not everyone is lucky with love, but the sad story of a mother, Tamisha Price, dying with her unborn daughter, is indeed a sad tragedy. And to imagine that she died at the hands of her lover is indeed sad. However, the questions remain. What really happened? What led to such a horrific love ending? Join us as we take a look into the killing of Tamisha Price and her unborn child.
When I first laid eyes on you, when I heard your
and I just fell in love with a gangster, so I hold him down like an anchor. He said if I keep it 100.
Now, 3 suspects have been indicted in the fatal shooting of a pregnant woman. They are accused of the January killing of 34-year-old Tamisha Price. Take a look. According to court documents, a grand jury indicted Paris James and Jerry Scott on several counts of aggravated murder and felonious assault, among other charges.
In the heart of Toledo, Ohio, a gentle soul was born on May 22, 1989. Tamisha Price, affectionately known as Misha by those who loved her, grew up in a warm and caring home. Her parents, Tyler and Stacy Price, worked hard every day to build a family filled with love and support. Tamisha was the only daughter and the youngest of 4 children. With 3 older brothers by her side, she learned early on the value of care, protection, and unity. Growing up, the Price household was lively and full of joy. Family dinners were a sacred time when everyone gathered around the table, sharing stories of the day and planning for the future. Tamisha's brothers, always protective and full of energy, made sure that she felt safe and loved. Together, they played in the neighborhood and studied side by side. Their closeness was more than just sibling love. It was a bond that would define Tamisha's sense of belonging and strength. School was another important place for young Tamisha. She attended Rogers High School, where she quickly became known for her kind heart and willingness to help others. Teachers and friends alike remembered her smile and the quiet determination that shone in her eyes. Later, she continued her studies at Apostolic Christian Academy, a private school that focused on faith and character. Here, her natural ability to care for people began to take shape, and she discovered that her passion lay in serving her community. Tamisha's desire to help others led her to study healthcare at Herzing University. With a strong focus on nursing and patient care, she believed that even small acts of kindness could bring comfort and healing to those in need. Beyond her academic achievements, she dedicated countless hours to volunteering at local clinics. Every time she helped someone, she felt that deep, steady warmth inside, a confirmation that her chosen path was filled with purpose. But Tamisha was not only about work and studies. She also nurtured a creative spirit. In her spare time, she loved to paint and write. These hobbies were her way of expressing herself. With each brushstroke and every written word, she captured moments of beauty and emotion. Her art was a window to her soul, a gentle reminder that even in a world of challenges, there is always room for creativity and hope. As Tamisha grew older, life brought new chapters filled with both joy and challenges. In her early 20s, she entered into a relationship that would shape a significant part of her life. This relationship, full of promise at the beginning, brought with it moments of laughter, dreams of a bright future, and the excitement of building a family. Together, she and her partner welcomed 2 sons, Jaden Kishan and Leslie Michael, who would soon become the center of her world. Despite the happiness that filled her early adult years, Tamisha's journey was never without obstacles. The relationship with the father of her 2 sons began to change. What started as a union built on hope gradually showed cracks. As disagreements grew and the atmosphere at home became tense, Tamisha made a brave decision. She chose to leave the unhealthy environment to protect her children and to create a better future for them. With a heavy heart but a clear mind, she stepped forward into a new chapter of independence and self-reliance. This period of change was both difficult and inspiring. Tamisha's inner strength began to shine even brighter as she dedicated herself to building a life that was full of new opportunities. She worked long hours to ensure that her sons had everything they needed. Her determination to provide for her family became a powerful force in her life. Every challenge she faced only made her more resilient, and every setback became a stepping stone towards a future that she believed would be better. While she focused on caring for her sons, Tamisha also began to explore her other passions. Her love for fashion, traveling, and content creation started to take shape. Instead of keeping these interests as mere hobbies, she decided to share her unique style and vibrant personality with the world. With a blend of humor and authenticity, she began showcasing her look across various platforms. People were drawn to her natural charm and the easy way she mixed fun with creativity. This new venture allowed her to express her individuality and gave her a sense of escape, a way to forget the hard times and embrace joy. In the midst of building a new life, Tamisha's journey took another unexpected turn. It was during this time of growth and transformation that she met a man named Paris James. Paris had a past that was complicated, marked by run-ins with the law and a reputation that did not initially inspire trust. Yet, as they spent time together, something unexpected began to form between them. Despite his troubled history, Paris saw in Tamisha a strength and warmth that he admired. For Tamisha, Paris represented a new chance, an opportunity to open her heart again and imagine a future filled with hope and companionship. As their relationship deepened, Tamisha felt the gentle stirrings of happiness return to her life. It was not long before she discovered that she was pregnant once more, a new life growing inside her, a new symbol of hope. This pregnancy was particularly special. It was the promise of a baby girl, whom she had already lovingly named Misha Price. For Tamisha, this baby was a blessing, a sign that her life was moving toward a brighter future. Even though the shadows of past heartaches lingered, this new chapter filled her with a sense of purpose and love. In these early days, the promise of a future filled with love and possibility was bright. Tamisha was determined to protect her children, to follow her dreams, and to show the world that no matter how hard life gets, hope can always be found. However, as the days went by, dark clouds began to gather on the horizon. Unknown to her, the seeds of a storm were being sown, a storm that would soon change everything she held dear. Beneath the surface of these hopeful days, cracks began to show. Paris, whose past was marred by mistakes and difficult choices, started to reveal a side that Tamisha had not seen before. His once gentle tone began to carry hints of suspicion and anger. He questioned her every word, every action. Slowly, his doubts grew louder and filled the quiet spaces of their conversations. Paris began to show displeasure with the news of the pregnancy. He began asking questions which always made Tamisha uncomfortable. Tamisha's heart sank. She had always been honest with Paris, sharing every detail of her life without hiding a thing. But now, his words planted seeds of doubt that made her question the man she had come to love. Though his anger was subtle, it was enough to cloud the promise of the future they had once imagined together. Despite these troubling signs, Tamisha continued to look forward to the arrival of her daughter. She threw herself into planning a baby shower, a special celebration for her little one. Friends and family rallied around her, their support a beacon of light amid the growing shadows. They helped her decorate a small space in her home, filling it with bright balloons, gentle music, and heartfelt wishes for the new life about to begin. Every detail was a reminder of her strength and the promise of tomorrow. In these busy days, Tamisha's focus was on love and hope. She spent long hours picking out little details for the baby shower, a soft pink banner, handmade gifts, and a simple cake decorated with care. Each small decision was an act of defiance against the darkness that was slowly creeping into her life. She believed that by celebrating the arrival of her daughter, she could keep the light shining bright, even as the clouds gathered overhead. But even as she immersed herself in the joy of the upcoming celebration, the tension between her and Paris grew more apparent. The man who had once been her solace now seemed distant and unpredictable. Paris's occasional harsh words and cold stares made her heart ache, and each new day brought with it a sense of foreboding. While Tamisha's friends offered comforting words and gentle hugs, Paris retreated into a silence that spoke of secrets yet to be revealed. Behind closed doors, he began making plans that Tamisha knew nothing about. There were whispered phone calls in the middle of the night, hurried meetings with unknown faces, and moments when he would stare into space as if plotting something far more dangerous than a simple argument. In one particularly heavy afternoon, as the baby shower date neared, Tamisha sat at her small dining table reviewing the final details. The room was filled with soft light, and the decorations seemed to whisper promises of joy. Yet her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. When she opened it, she found Paris standing there, his face troubled and his eyes dark with an emotion she had never seen before. He spoke in a quiet, strained voice. "We need to talk." There was no anger in his words, only an unsettling seriousness that made her stomach churn. Inside the room, Paris shared his inner thoughts, and it became clear that he felt deeply uneasy about their future and the current situation. His emotions wavered between regret and anger as he expressed his growing doubts, not only about what lay ahead, but also about Tamisha's loyalty. His language carried a sharp, accusatory tone that, despite his attempts to temper it, cut through Tamisha like a painful reminder of betrayal. In response, Tamisha tried to make it clear that her love was genuine and her intentions were sincere. She wanted Paris to understand that she had nothing to hide and that she was committed to building a future together. However, the expression in Paris's eyes revealed a conflict far deeper than simple mistrust, a cold hardness that hinted at the potential for actions far more damaging than mere words. In the days that followed, Tamisha felt as if she were living two lives. On one hand, there was the bright, hopeful plan of welcoming a new life, a celebration of her strength, her ability to rise above adversity. On the other, there was the quiet, unnerving presence of Paris's growing anger and suspicion. She found solace in the support of her friends and the anticipation of the baby shower, but she could not shake the feeling that danger was lurking in the shadows. Every smile during the party planning was tinged with worry. Every kind word from a friend was a reminder that she was fighting not only for her dreams, but also against a growing storm of betrayal and violence. Tamisha's days were filled with conflicting emotions, joy for the life she was nurturing and dread for the secrets Paris was keeping. Each moment became a struggle to hold on to hope while fearing the worst. At approximately 5 a.m. on January 24, 2024, a quiet Toledo neighborhood was shattered by a distress call that would soon lead to an unimaginable tragedy. One of Tamisha Price's children, trembling with fear and confusion, had managed to call 911, reporting that their mother had just been shot. In the early morning darkness, the phone's urgent message spread quickly, alerting emergency responders to a scene that no one in the community could have ever imagined. When the police and paramedics arrived, they were met with a heartbreaking sight. In the bedroom of the modest home, 34-year-old Tamisha Price lay unresponsive. Multiple gunshot wounds marred her body, a stark and devastating confirmation that violence had struck without warning. Despite the frantic efforts of the first responders, every attempt to save her life fell short. Tamisha was tragically pronounced dead at the scene. All that remained was a heavy silence and the reality of a life cruelly cut short. In the moments following the shooting, neighbors began to gather outside the home. Those who knew Tamisha well felt a deep shock and overwhelming grief. They exchanged tearful glances and whispered prayers as they tried to make sense of the chaos that had invaded their once peaceful street. However, even as the community mourned, there was another layer of horror yet to be revealed. The most gut-wrenching detail emerged from the brave testimony of Tamisha's own children. Her sons, Jaden and Leslie, had witnessed the entire ordeal. In terror, they had watched their mother fall victim to the gunfire and then fled to hide, clinging to one another in fear. Later, when the police began their questioning, the boys recounted every detail they remembered. Their words, raw with pain and confusion, provided crucial information that would guide the investigation in its early stages. As detectives from the Toledo Police Department began to piece together the events of that fateful morning, one fact became chillingly clear. Tamisha Price's death was not an accident. It was a deliberate act of violence. The Lucas County Coroner's Office later confirmed that she had suffered multiple gunshot wounds, and her death was ruled a homicide. In a heartbreaking twist, it was also determined that her unborn daughter, Malaysia Leanne Price, had not survived. The baby's death was directly linked to the complications caused by the maternal gunshot wounds, and the authorities counted it as a homicide as well. The investigation quickly turned its focus to finding those responsible. Eyewitness accounts, physical evidence, and even video footage began to paint a picture of a premeditated plan. 3 main suspects soon emerged: Paris James, Jerry Scott, and Shatwaya triplet. Each of these individuals was brought in for questioning as detectives sought to uncover the motivations behind the brutal act. As details emerged, a shocking narrative began to take shape. Paris James, who had been in a relationship with Tamisha, was revealed to have harbored deep doubts about the pregnancy. According to police affidavits, he had repeatedly asked her to terminate the pregnancy, doubting that the child was truly his. Despite Tamisha's firm refusals, even going so far as to hold a baby shower in celebration of the coming life, Paris's anger and frustration grew. It was this festering resentment that would soon lead to his darkest decision. While Tamisha was busy planning her baby shower with friends and family, Paris had secretly been orchestrating a plan to end her life. Working closely with his friend Jerry Scott and his girlfriend Shatwaya triplet, Paris created a facade of normalcy. Outwardly, it appeared as if nothing was amiss. Tamisha was allowed to continue with her plans, and her preparations for the baby shower gave no indication of the impending danger. But behind closed doors, the trio meticulously arranged a confrontation designed not just to intimidate, but to silence her forever. The plan, as later described by investigators, was as cold as it was calculated. Paris and Jerry allegedly arrived at Tamisha's home just before dawn, armed with handguns and driven by a mix of anger and betrayal. Their intention was clear. They would confront her about the relationship issues, force her into submission, and in doing so, send a message that she could not simply walk away from him. The confrontation quickly escalated into a heated argument. Paris accused Tamisha of betraying him, and in his rage, he threatened her with violence if she did not comply with his demands. In the midst of this confrontation, Tamisha tried to retreat for safety. Seeking refuge, she ran toward her bedroom with her children, who had been unwittingly caught in the unfolding nightmare. But Paris, consumed by his rage, pulled out his gun. In a fit of uncontrolled anger, he fired several shots. The sound of the gunfire echoed throughout the house and down the quiet street, sending shockwaves through the neighborhood. Jerry Scott, standing by in the living room, played his part by ensuring that nothing or no one could stop Paris from carrying out his deadly act. In the chaos that ensued, Tamisha's desperate attempts to escape went in vain. The violence was swift and merciless. Paris, convinced that Tamisha, his pregnant girlfriend, would not survive the brutal attack, fled the scene with Jerry in tow. In a matter of minutes, a day that had begun with hope had transformed into a tragedy of unspeakable proportions. After a few agonizing moments of silence, Tamisha's young sons emerged from their hiding place. Overwhelmed by horror and confusion, they discovered their mother lying lifeless on the floor. In a state of shock and despair, they managed to call 911, providing the police with the vital information that would guide the investigation. Their brave testimony became one of the cornerstones of the case. Within days, law enforcement officials issued charges against the main suspects. Paris James was charged with aggravated murder, along with several counts of murder, aggravated burglary, felonious assault, and tampering with evidence. Jerry Scott faced similar charges for his role in the crime. Shatwaya triplet, implicated for providing a false alibi and obstructing justice, was charged with obstructing justice and later indicted on felony counts. These indictments were a clear signal that the justice system was determined to bring accountability for the loss of Tamisha Price and her unborn child. As investigators delved deeper, the story took on even more complexity. Court documents later revealed that evidence, including video footage and witness testimonies, strongly suggested that the killing had been meticulously planned. Paris James, in particular, had orchestrated the entire act, using his relationship with Tamisha as a cover while secretly gathering accomplices to carry out his deadly plan. The early morning of January 24, 2024, marked the beginning of a long and painful journey toward justice. For the family of Tamisha Price, her adoring sons, Jaden and Leslie, her grieving parents, Tyler and Stacy, and her brothers spread across the country, the loss was immeasurable. The community, too, felt the impact of this tragedy. Many were left questioning how a situation that began with hope and promise could so quickly descend into violence and despair. As the investigation continued, new questions arose. How could someone who once shared tender moments with Tamisha become capable of such calculated cruelty? What hidden resentments and dark secrets had festered behind the closed doors of what appeared to be a loving relationship? And most importantly, could the legal process ever bring the justice that her family so desperately needed? In the weeks and months that followed, supporters rallied around Tamisha's family. A GoFundMe page was set up to help cover immediate expenses and to support her children as they began to rebuild their lives without her. Community leaders, domestic violence advocates, and local activists seized the moment to call for stronger support systems for victims of violence. Events were organized and public statements were made, all aimed at ensuring that Tamisha's tragic death would not be in vain. The fateful morning that claimed Tamisha Price's life became a turning point, not only for her family, but for an entire community determined to stand against violence. Yet, even as the wheels of justice began to turn, the shadow of that terrible day loomed large. Every detail, every piece of evidence collected by the police served as a reminder of the fragility of trust and the devastating impact of betrayal. In the months after the shooting, the case against Paris James, Jerry Scott, and Shatwaya Triplet became a symbol of the fight against domestic violence and betrayal. The Toledo Police Department and local prosecutors worked hard to gather all the evidence they could. They collected witness statements, video recordings, and forensic evidence. The police determined that Tamisha Price died from multiple gunshot wounds, and her unborn daughter, Malaysia Liani Price, was lost as a result. Both deaths were ruled homicides, and the community was left to mourn not one, but two precious lives. As the legal process moved forward, a grand jury indicted Paris James and Jerry Scott on several counts. They faced charges including aggravated murder, multiple counts of murder, aggravated burglary. However, the legal battle was only just beginning. In January 2025, the trial for Paris James and Jerry Scott was scheduled to start. Families, community members, and advocates for victims of domestic violence looked to the courtroom with heavy hearts, hoping that justice would finally be served. But as the trial date approached, unexpected new evidence came to light, complicating the case even further. During routine testing by the Bureau of Criminal Investigation, BCI, technicians discovered that another male's DNA was present on the murder weapon. This revelation sent ripples through the courtroom and among the legal teams. The discovery of this third person's genetic material meant that the story behind Tamisha's murder might be even more complex than anyone had thought. Defense attorneys for James and Scott immediately filed motions requesting more time to review the new evidence. They argued that understanding every detail was crucial to ensuring a fair trial. This new twist not only deepened the mystery surrounding the case, but also provided hope for those still seeking answers. The presence of another male's DNA suggested that there might have been someone else involved, a fact that could change the course of the trial and bring additional questions to light. The prosecutors, determined to uphold justice for Tamisha Price and her unborn child, began to investigate this new lead with renewed vigor. They reviewed every piece of evidence, re-interviewed witnesses, and compared forensic reports, all in the hope of uncovering the truth behind the chilling act. Meanwhile, Shatwaya Triplet's role in the case was also coming under closer scrutiny. Her attorney filed a motion to sever her case from that of Paris James and Jerry Scott. The argument was that her charge, which stemmed from obstructing justice, was different in nature from the murder charges faced by the other two. The defense hoped that by separating her case, the focus would remain clear on the planning and execution of the murder itself. For many in the community, however, all three were seen as pieces of the same tragic puzzle, a puzzle that had shattered the lives of those who loved Tamisha. Outside the courtroom, the emotional toll of the case was evident. Tamisha Price's family struggled to come to terms with the loss, and each day was a painful reminder of the absence of the woman who had meant so much to so many. Her sons, Jaden and Leslie, who had witnessed the horrifying events of that fateful morning, were left with memories that would haunt them forever. Yet, amidst their grief, there remained a small spark of hope that one day the truth would prevail. In the days ahead, the trial would determine not just the fate of those accused, but also set a precedent for how similar cases would be handled in the future. The hope was that by exposing every detail of the planned murder and holding every person responsible accountable, the community could begin to heal. And perhaps, with the strength of collective resolve, steps could be taken to ensure that no other family would endure such a devastating loss. The case of Tamisha Price remains a reminder of the dangers that can lurk behind broken promises and hidden resentments. It underscores the need for vigilance, compassion, and robust support for those caught in the cycle of domestic abuse. As the courtroom drama unfolds and more evidence is brought to light, the legacy of Tamisha Price continues to inspire a call for justice, a call that will resonate as long as there is hope for change. In the end, while the road to justice may be long and winding, the memory of Tamisha Price stands as a beacon for those who believe that truth and love will ultimately prevail. Her story, marked by both joy and tragedy, will forever be a part of the fabric of her community, a constant reminder of the need for compassion, accountability, and the courage to stand against injustice.